Welcome to the second part of the Google Apps Script series. In this part, we will take a look at the debugger built into the Google Apps Script IDE. While not the caliber of an application such as Xcode or Visual Studio, the Google Apps Script debugger is quite helpful. I'm going to use the project I started from the first screencast, but you can open a new one if you like. So let's add a new function. Notice that we get automatic indentation. Now obviously this function attempts to divide the first argument by the second and log the result or log an error if the result is 0. We can try to run this by selecting divide two numbers in the drop down and clicking run. Now when we view the logs, the result is NaN. For review, NaN is a special value, which means not a number, and this is the result of trying to perform math operations on values which are not numbers. And here's a little bit of JavaScript trivia. NaN is not even equal to itself. For proof, so it's very interesting. But back to our application, why do we get NaN? This is a great place to start to figure out how to use the debugger. If we want to run the debugger, we click the button with a bug on it. Now nothing really seemed to happen there, and when we view the logs, we still get NaN. Like with other debuggers, you have to set a breakpoint in order to get the debugger to work. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click to the left of line 6, and this will place a little red dot next to it, and then this is a breakpoint, and so what will happen is the breakpoint will force the program to pause but not exit, so we can examine the state of the application before this line is executed. So now if we try to debug, we're going to see this screen at the bottom open, and we're going to see that it tells us that the values for A and B are undefined. And this makes sense because we never had a chance to get them values. And since undefined is not a numeric value, trying to use it in the math operation would likely result in NaN. So let's try that real quick. So if we say undefined and divide it by undefined, we get NaN, just as we would expect. So now, let's stop the debugger by clicking stop, and let's add some code here to further explore the debugger. So we're going to assign the result to a variable and then log that variable. And then we're going to add a new function to the end of the file that will allow us to test the function with values, or divide two numbers of values. And we'll create a test case for each of our possibilities and divide two numbers. So let's leave the breakpoint at line 6 and select test and save the file. That's one thing that is worth mentioning, is that your function will not appear in this list unless you save your file. Test divide to numbers and click debug. Now we can see that the debugger has 1.0 and 4.0 for values for A and B respectively. And you can also step through the code like you might expect. If you click the step over button, we'll go to the next line. The value for answer is undefined because we haven't executed this line yet. Step over again. And the value for number changes to 0.25. So now what we can do is we can click the continue button, and what will happen is it will run until the next breakpoint. Now the next breakpoint is going to be at line 6 because we are now executing line 16 here, which is going to run divide to numbers again. But at this point we can check the logs and see that we do have 0.25 in the logs. If we click step over a few more times, this time it will execute line 10 because B is 0 and you can't divide by 0. Continue. Finish up by viewing the logs, and you see that we get the error message as we expected.